Thank you and good evening. Welcome to the LPAC in Lincoln for the Lincoln constituency debate tonight. Our first question tonight comes from Eamon Moore. Is Eamon in the audience, Nicola?
Hi panel. What would you do to improve the transport situation in the county in relation to roads, rail and other forms of public transport?
The transport deal that we have here in Lincoln is really, really poor. And it's poor in terms of our roads, our rail, our cycle routes. It's poor across the board. People are fed up with being stuck in traffic jams for far too long. They're fed up with the level crossings. They're fed up with our rail links to neighbouring cities. So there's a whole host of things I want to do. And I've been campaigning over the last 3 years on each of those things.
We need the dualling of roads. We have to have the capacity to take all the traffic that's actually sometimes now getting out of Lincoln at night. It's just absolutely a nightmare. And because those places and those roads rather weren't in place, it's just got to a level now where everything actually coming to a standstill, and that isn't doing the economy of the town any good, and it doesn't do the people who work in town any good.
One of the first things we need to get in place is the Lincoln bypass. It's long overdue, and I think that's one thing that one of the things we all agree on. It needs to be done ASAP because that will relieve the traffic congestion within the city and also reduce the air pollution, which is a significant problem in some parts of the city.
The biggest and most important thing is roads, because roads, if you don't have the right road infrastructure, you won't get the bigger companies that will come to Lincoln and build factories, which will give you the bigger amounts of jobs. Everything we need, the bypass does need to be dual carriageway, otherwise we're going to be coming back to it later and spending an absolute fortune making it into dual carriageway. We really need to finish off the rest of the bypass as well on the western side and dual that as well, so it's one big link.
I feel that there ought to be a stronger investment in transport, and as far as the infrastructure when homes are built, obviously roads have to be a consideration and the links. I think that a park and ride situation is very good, and I think there ought to be more links to other cities, as I said previously, Nottingham, Sheffield and other places, not just London, but to the north.
Would you welcome Park and Ride for Lincoln?
I would, yeah. This is something I'm doing a lot of campaigning on. I mean, Lincoln's population doubles during the day. The number of people that we've got coming in. So I think, it's greener, it's much more sustainable. Other cities like Lincoln, Exeter, York, they have park and ride schemes. So, yeah, I think we need it.
With Lincoln being one of the areas in the UK with the lowest number of doctors and nurses per capita, how would you help the local NHS recruit more doctors and nurses to the area?
I would like to see the introduction of a local medical school so we can actually train the doctors locally, and that would help retention within the area. And I think that's one of the things we need desperately. But also we need to make sure that the NHS is actually funded properly, and that's why the Liberal Democrats have committed £8 billion of funding over the next 5 years, and from all the parties here, we're the only ones that actually to have committed to that.
There should not be a shortage of doctors. And doctors and, well, particularly nurses, their pay cuts and freezers need to be reversed. We need to take away money that is being siphoned off to the sort of private, in relation to privatisation of the NHS, and put it back into staff and put it back into valuing staff and making them feel that they're doing a good job like they are.
I think we're missing a trick here nationally. It is called the NHS. The S bit is called service. Now, if you want to have the right people in the right place, the way the army does it is they post them. Now, when you get posted somewhere, if you're on a proper contract and you were given a 5 or an 8 year contract when you became a doctor or a nurse, and you were given your posting, and you were needed in Lincolnshire, then you became a GP in Lincolnshire. That is the only way you're ever going to solve this problem, because if you're going to just advertise and nobody applies, you're stuffed. People need it now. So you're going to have to go eventually to a proper service.
The recruiting of these doctors, I know they're saying it's difficult to keep them, and I don't know why they just don't go back to how the police force used to be run. All the senior officers in the police force used to have a house in that area so they didn't have to sell their family home where they've settled and got a life, They'd come up and do the work, and then that house would go on to the next person. I can't imagine why that hasn't been done, because they wouldn't have to give up their own family home then, and they would actually come and work here without any pressure.
We need more nurses and more doctors now. Now, Labour has a fully costed plan to bring in 8,000 more GPs, 20,000 more nurses, but we've also said, let's talk to the Royal College of Nursing about how we, well, first of all, increase massively the number of training places for medical staff ASAP, but also try and encourage people who've left the professions back, which obviously is more immediate. So there's a whole range of things that we need to be doing, but the health service is the number one thing that people talk to me about. So, huge issue.
It amazes me that the parties say they can get between 5,000 and 8,000 GPs overnight. We've already alluded to the fact that it takes 10 years to train a doctor from going into medical school to becoming a GP. So my point is that I think we really need to prevent people leaving the professions.
In Lincolnshire, we are funded per head £487. In the south of the country, each person is funded £1,300 and more. So if you keep taking away the funding for our services, all it adds to is the pressure of all those professionals that absolutely love their job, and they are being abused and taken for granted by the powers that be, because they know that that's what they want to do with their lives.
Because they're dedicated to what they do.
We need to support our NHS. We need to support the staff who work there, and that's one of the biggest things we all need to pull together as a country and do.
These people do this job because they want to do it, because they care about people. One of the things that they've got is pressure. As our population keeps exploding through immigration, we will have pressures. I know you don't like the I word, my guys and gals, but it's true, it's a reality. It's coming to a town near you, okay? And I'm afraid whatever you think, if you keep piling on the people and you don't increase the doctors' to cope with it, you are going to have serious problems. Each doctor is turning away people and getting people off their lists because they can't cope. Now, you can't just say, it's not happening, it's not happening. It is happening. It's happening here. Well, it isn't. Now, you just said it's in crisis. Did you? Oh, I can see we've got a loaded audience. Right.
Let me bring Elaine Smith in here.
There's more to the NHS than they take out.
Yes, they're very good, very good. Look, we all accept the NHS is fantastic, but it is under incredible strain. And it's not going to be helped by bringing more customers in, is it? What we need to do is...
Nursing staff, doctors and medical staff do the job that
They do a fantastic job. We know, hey, Elaine,
want to be accountants.
nobody's asking them to.
They
No,
don't.
hey,
They want to do the job.
nobody
They want
is
to do more
saying...
research.
Nobody's saying that. They're doing a fantastic job, but you're piling on the pressure. If you want people to stay, it's no use just saying, we'll have an extra 2 million people over the next few years. That's what we've had. Since 1997, we've had 9 million people
got
extra
an
in this
ageing
country.
population.
Has the NHS staff increased exponentially?
Let
No.
me hold it there if we may. Elaine,
That's got
just
to go.
hold it there for a second.
Look, the elephant in the room here, the thing, a few people have mentioned, this is all, this government wasted £3 billion on the reorganisation of the NHS, which they promised that they would not do.
Has there been a net benefit to the UK from migration?
Has there been a net benefit to the UK from migration?
Well, I think you can honestly say from the debate we've been having about the NHS that that's one area that has definitely benefited. You find that the debate is being skewed very, very heavily on those who are seeking benefits when not that many immigrants actually getting benefits. And I think it's wrong. You need to actually differentiate between those who are here to work and those who are here to seek asylum and those who are trying to get here illegally. That's where you need to make the differentiation. You can't just put them all in one category like a lot of people are trying to do.
I only see immigration as being very beneficial, and they've brought, they pay more in taxes than they take out in benefits. They are sort of exceptionally skilled and provide, as we said before, they've kept the NHS afloat. And I just think it's shameful when immigration is used as so divisory. I really do.
Migration can be a fantastic thing, and it's very important to our country. some of the people that have come in to work for the NHS, fantastic. This is what we call skilled immigration. That's what it's called, skilled immigration. But we have had millions of unskilled immigration. And if you think I'm lying, go and have a look at your pay packets. If you work in an area which is semi-skilled or low-skilled, your wages have been compressed. Now, the minimum wage is the maximum wage. That's a fact. You can take that to the bank, okay? Now, we want good immigration in this country. Immigration is important, but it has to be controlled. You have to make sure you know who you're getting. It's no use just taking anybody. That's a recipe for madness.
I think it's really, really important. I want to echo Elaine here and Ross that the debate that we have around immigration takes place in a sensible way and in a way that values the diversity that we have in this country, not in kind of an arms race on rhetoric, which, Nick, I'm really sorry, not you personally necessarily, but UKIP candidates, unfortunately,
nobody wants to be held
around the
accountable,
country.
That's the
No,
reality.
Nick, that's not the case. That's
No,
not
you
the
do.
case.
Yeah, I'm afraid under your lot,
That's
7
not the
million.
case. That's
sorry,
not the
this
case.
is
All
Lucy,
right, go
Lucy free speech
Yep.
here at the minute for Lucy.
Well, so, and I would say, unfortunately, I think sometimes that debate about legitimate concerns that people have descends, and it descends in a way which I believe is really unhealthy.
For one thing, hospitals couldn't exist. If they all packed up and went home tomorrow, we just couldn't exist. I know there's a lot of people over on the East Coast. I think there's about 16,000 people working in the food industry over there. 16,000 unemployed people were offered those jobs and they didn't want to take them. So the power of the land that we have in Lincolnshire is the richest in the whole country, and some say the richest in Europe. It's grade 1, 2 and 3, double and triple cropping. That land is providing half of all the food the whole UK grows. There's 56,000 employees there, and the total contribution to the whole of the UK is £2.5 billion. So if we don't want to eat, you know, who's going to do it? They definitely make a big difference and a big benefit.
We are out of time. We are now going to hear the 5 closing statements from our candidates on our stage here at the LPAC.
I think we should redirect some of the funding. If we didn't give 10 billion net to the EU, that's a nice big chunk of money we could be spending on ourselves. Overseas aid is another one. Hey, let me speak. Overseas aid, 9 billion. Now, some of the overseas aid is brilliant, but there's a lot of it goes to building palaces that I don't particularly think we should be doing. There's a lot of it does. A lot of the money is misappropriated. I want to see the money spent in Britain. And I'd like to see us standing alone as an independent country, dealing with the whole of the world, trading with the whole of the world, having a free trade agreement with Europe if they so wish. I'm sure they'll be knocking our door down to speak to us because we import more from them than we export to them.
If you want someone who's going to stand up for our city and fight, someone who believes in our local NHS and in promoting our small businesses and in reforming the energy market and in scrapping the bedroom tax, someone who's going to turn up and someone who's going to stand up again and again and again in a better and a fairer and a more prosperous Lincoln, then I want to be your Member of Parliament, and I need your support on Thursday.
We fight for local people, we fight for local services, and we promote the economy in those areas. We look for everything to promote the best we can possibly do in those areas. There's 3 things in my life that have stood the test of time that my mum taught her and my mum taught me. To always do your best, to do unto others as you would like to be treated, and to think of others before yourself. Thank you.
Do you want a Britain with a world-class health service where you know your loved ones will receive the best care because it has received the funding it needs? Do you want a Britain where a child can dream of what their life wants to be rather than being held back because of their colour of their skin or their background? Do you want a Britain where a young couple can own their own home? Would you like a Britain with clean air, green spaces, protecting our natural heritage for generations to come? A Britain where a young gay, bisexual or transgender man or woman can live without fear? That is the sort of Britain I want. Vote for Liberal Democrat.
Britain's richest people increased their wealth by 28 billion last year. And yet the pro-austerity politicians still insist that there is no money around to maintain services. So we need to build an opposition to austerity. Living standards, secure jobs on a decent pay, free health, social care and education, control of the banks and utilities, and we have to build for a socialist alternative to this capitalism that's breaking not only the system, but the poorest in our country.
Will you put your hands together for our candidates on stage this evening? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank